facility within their walls, the pharmacy.
So this notion of a pharmacy in a hospital, is that a new innovation?
Well, the whole package, certainly, that's new. And what is interesting, if you look for innovation, again, like on the level of pharmacy, if you look at Baghdad or even Damascus, it's at this crossroad of cultures. So loads of new things come in, like musk, for instance, myrobalan. You have like Indian drugs. There's like an Indian pill, for instance, which is good against headaches and like bad breath, but also gives you sexual appetite and stuff like that. So
Kills your headache, gives you fresh breath,
and gives you
increased. And so it's like toothpaste, Viagra, and aspirin.
That's right, all in one.
Fantastic.
Yeah. So let's walk in here.
Peter wants to show me perhaps the most ghoulish aspect of Islamic medicine: surgery.
Here you have like a wonderful illustration. It appears that this is the first anatomical illustration in history. Like you see, it says adala, which means muscle, and so these are like the different muscles which move the eyelids.
So it was understood then that the muscles controlled the
absolutely
the lens in the eye.
Yeah, and moved the eyelid and stuff like that. So the other thing which we have here, which is really nice, is I think we have some. Like ophthalmological instruments, for instance, it's a hook, could be used, for instance, like to kind of pull back your eyelid, that sort of thing. I mean, these instruments were very useful to the doctor.
Although these tools might look crude, eye surgery was one of Islamic medicine's great successes. One innovation was to improve an older technique for curing cataracts called couching, which in their hands had a success rate of over 60%.
In a living subject, the cornea would be clear, and you'd be able to see the pupil clearly with the cataract sitting behind the pupil, the wide opacity.
To see how couching stands the test of time, I'm meeting up with eye surgeon Mr. Vic Sharma.
Right, the cataract is the lens inside the eye, which sits behind the pupil. As with time, with age, the lens gets cloudier and cloudier. And that's what is referred to as a cataract. Okay.
I've brought along a replica of a medieval couching knife and a description of the treatment by Al-Bukassis, which is the Latin name for the great 10th century Islamic surgeon Al-Zahrawi.
He says you take the couching needle in your right hand, if it be the left eye, and so on, and then thrust the needle firmly in, at the same time rotating it with your hand until it penetrates the white of the eye, and you feel the needle has reached something empty. So he's talking about how to dislodge.
Exactly.
So, I mean, maybe you can show me. We've got some eyes here.
Yep, and I'll certainly give it a shot, and what they would have done would have attempted to go in just by the white of the eye, just at the edge where the cornea is. And then what they are attempting to do is to sweep around, trying to break all those ligaments of that lens and trying to get the lens to drop away from the pupil to allow more light to enter in through the pupil and to brighten the subject's vision.
But of course you haven't got the capacity to focus.
Oh yeah, you haven't got a lens now, so that was a big problem until people started compensating that with specs later on.
Right. What is your feeling about how advanced and successful?
Well, they were on the general ballpark. They were at the right place. They were trying to remove the cataract away from the visual axis.
They understood the anatomy of the eye.
Exactly. They had some understanding of the anatomy of the eye, and that the lens was behind the pupil, and that's what was causing the visual loss. And so removing that, and that general principle is still the same.
Right.
And there are still accounts of it being used in certain parts of the world presently.
Looking back at medieval Islamic medicine with modern scientific eyes is frustrating. They take as true many things we know to be nonsense. But on the other hand, their desire to deal with this vast subject logically and systematically is admirable and truly marks a break with the past. One Islamic scholar, more than any other, embodies the synthesis of religion, faith and reason. His name was Ibn Sina, or Avicenna, as he's known in the West. He was a polymath who clearly thrived in intellectual and courtly circles. In 1025, he completed this, Al-Qanun fil Tib, or the Canon of Medicine. In it, Ibn Sina collated and expanded on all that had gone before him, medical ideas from Greece to India, and turned them into a single work.
So how would you place this book in a historical context?
Oh, it's hugely important. I mean, there are a few books which are as important as the canon, because what this encyclopedia does, it kind of, sweeps away everything else. It becomes a textbook. It supersedes a lot of other texts, and people even complain that, it's so good, it's so tightly organized, it's so easily accessible that, people forget to read the Greek sources in Arabic translations. This whole first book, this is the first book, contains what we call the kulliyat, the general principles. So it's all about how the human body works, how diseases work in general. The second book contains diseases of what we sometimes call from tip to toe, like from tip to toe. So he starts with the diseases of the head, and then he moves down, like the eyes, the ears, the nose, the mouth, and normally they end up at the sexual organs, you see.
At first sight, the sheer ambition of the 3 volumes is hugely impressive. Here's an attempt at diagnosis and cure for diseases as diverse as depression, meningitis and smallpox. And there's even detailed chapters on more common problems.
So, for instance, here you have headaches.
So different kinds of headaches.
في العلاج الصداع الحادث عن الروائح الطيبة. So headaches caused by pleasant, fragrant smells.
And then he's also got al-hadith min al-khimar, so hangovers.
Or jima. You can get headache from sex. So.
Is that right?
Well, hasn't happened to me yet, but let's see. So, the treatment of headache caused by sex. ويجب لمن يعتريه ذلك عقب الجماع وبامتلاء أن يبدأ بالفast. So if somebody has or is befallen by, suffers from a headache after sex, and he also has a repletion, so he has too many superfluities or something like that, so يجب أن يبدأ بالفast. One has to first resort to venesection or bloodletting. ثم بالإسهال, and then you should use purging. In وجب كل واحد منهما. For both of them, bloodletting and purging are necessary.
A lot of the stuff in here sounds like nonsense, of course, because this is not modern medicine.
No, it's not.
So how long was this taken seriously?
Well, the fundamental ideas contained here about how the body works, they hadn't changed until the early 19th century. There was progress, obviously, on certain levels, but the essence was the same. And then came the big break with the discovery of bacteria and viruses and things like that. And from the second half of the 19th century onward, medicine was totally revolutionized.
Ibn Sina's canon of medicine is a landmark in the history of the subject. Although much of the medical science it espouses we know now to be terribly misguided, its value lies in accumulating the best knowledge in the world at the time into one accessible, organized text. The canon would give future generations something to rewrite.
Cataloguing the world's medical knowledge has clear and obvious benefits. But the Islamic Empire's obsession to uncover the knowledge of the ancients went beyond practical matters like medicine. Many, like the Caliph al-Ma'mun, believed that the people of antiquity possessed dark, even magical powers. And what's more, new evidence is coming to light to show just how hard Islamic scientists worked to rediscover them.
To find out about that story, I have to visit the harsh burnt yellow of the Sahara Desert in Egypt. There I am to meet an academic who wants to show me how the translation movement took the Arabs to Egypt on a quest to break a code. Egypt on a quest to break a code, which they thought hid the secret of the dark art of alchemy. This is Saqqara, a necropolis or graveyard of the ancient pharaohs. Over a 10-acre site, it's a collection of burial chambers and step pyramids that were built in the 3rd millennium before Christ. These are said to be among the oldest stone buildings in the world.
Mind the step here?
Archaeologist Dr. Okasha Al-Dali is my guide. He was about to reveal the most astonishing story of my journey so far.
Oh, look at that.
Like most people, I believed that Egyptian hieroglyphs had remained completely undeciphered until the 19th century. Then came the chance discovery of the famous Rosetta Stone. This stone had the same inscription written in both hieroglyphs and Greek. It provided the crucial clues which British and French scholars used to decipher the writing of ancient Egypt. That's the usual story one hears. But Dr. Al-Dali has made a discovery that dramatically alters it. He has recently unearthed a number of rare works by the Islamic scholar Ibn Wahshiyya. What he did was figure out a correspondence between hieroglyphs like these and letters in the Arabic alphabet.
If you look here, for example, at Ibn Wahshiyya's manuscript, you see he's giving us the Egyptian hieroglyphic signs that have phonetic value.
Underneath.
Yes, and they have the phonetic value in Arabic underneath. So look very carefully at this one. He says seen underneath that seat.
Yes.
Now look at this seat here. That is S. That seat in Egyptian hieroglyphic is used for the sign S, seen, which is what you see here, seen. That is the name of the god Osiris. Osiris.
Oh, with an S.
That's the C. This is the letter H. This one here.
This is the ha.
The water wave
Water, right.
is the letter N, or Noon in Arabic. T, and the letter F.
These are all letters.
These are all letters. But then he realized...
But how did he decipher the hieroglyphs?
The one good thing about the early Arab scholars was their ability to link ancient Egyptian language, to link it with their own contemporary Coptic. They realized that Coptic is nothing but the later stage of ancient Egyptian language.
And they realized this because the translation movement had literally placed hundreds of Coptic texts into their hands. The scholars could now see a direct link between hieroglyphs and Arabic.
What fraction of these symbols would have been correctly deciphered?
They got about 14 letters. They got more than half of the Egyptian hieroglyphic correctly. So that was a remarkable achievement for people in the 9th century, 10th century.
Well, that's probably the biggest revelation for me so far on my travels, that Egyptology didn't begin in the 19th century. Yet again, it seems that Islamic scholars actually cracked hieroglyphics, and they cracked it for strange reasons. They cracked it because they were interested in astrology and alchemy. Here is another example of this amazing translation movement. They weren't just translating Greek and Indian and Persian texts, they were translating Egyptian hieroglyphics as well. Absolutely incredible. With no qualms about the places or religions from which it came.
Most intellectual traditions, including, if I may say so, our own, tend to work very hard to keep everybody else out. Whereas here we have an example of an enterprise which is desperate, curious, to turn itself into a net importer of intellectual product. And that's a very important lesson for the history of the sciences.
I was soon to see just how dramatically this fueled scientific innovation. But it's worth remembering that the translation movement wasn't just about science.